test match between a hardened test match team and a team that doesn't really play test cricket.
Mitchell Starc and Scott Boland put on a partnership that will be spoken about, well, for a very long time.
I think they gave up quite quickly on actually trying to get him out.
Day 3 of the second Ashes test here at the Gabba, and you just can't help but shake the feeling that this could be the day that Australia retain the Ashes. It certainly feels that way. They were relentless, not only with the bat, Australia's tail going big today, but also with the ball as well. And once again, England failing to fire when they needed it most. Sam Jordan here from 9 News, joined by Dan Bredig from The Age. Dan, that day just spiralled out of control at the very end, and now Australia is on the verge of a 2-0 series lead.
Yeah, well, it was really today, it was a test match between a hardened test match team and a team that doesn't really play test cricket in the way that we understand it, and the way that they want to play test cricket hasn't stood up in Australia. Since the lunch break on day 2 in Perth, it's been Australia squeezing England, and making good decisions, and England making bad decisions. And today it was really, it was kind of a compound effect, obviously. You think about England's tail, they've got a lot of talent with the bat, but they don't hang around.
Yeah.
Australia batted for runs and time today in, classic test match fashion. I mean, Mitchell Starc played, the test match innings of a batsman, and, one that would have been respected by test match players for decades. To put Australia in a position with, as I say, runs and time to make the most of bowling under lights. And they didn't get lavish help, I don't think, from the pink ball tonight. They had to work for it.
Yep.
But there was there was a relentlessness about their bowling. The groupings of where they were putting their deliveries was really tight, and England succumbed over time.
They started on the right note. England this morning, we did arrive here at the Gabba hoping for some kind of resilience from this English side, and well, immediately we did see it. They knocked over Michael Neser quite cheaply. Alex Carey did get to 50, but then he departed soon after, and it seemed like things were moving for England to be able to claw their way back into this contest. And then they stopped. And then Mitchell Starc and Scott Boland put on a partnership that will be spoken about, well, for a very long time. And in the context of this series, it could be decisive.
Yeah, well, you could see in that, Mitchell Starc has got a lot of skill as a batsman, as a lower order player. He took over from Stuart Broad as the most test runs ever made by a number 9, which is an interesting statistic. And Scott Boland has been a night watchman for Australia before. He did that at Edgbaston in 2023 under a lot of pressure. So he knows how to hang around. And England, they'd been dulled a bit by the fact that they'd already been out there for pretty much a full day yesterday. They weren't sharp. They hadn't bowled with much precision at all throughout the innings, and so they weren't able to, deliver that unrelenting pressure that was going to get a wicket in terms of either Mitchell Starc or Scott Boland. In the case of Mitchell Starc, I think they gave up quite quickly on actually trying to get him out, which I think was, a mistake, because Starc, as I say, good player, but he is a number 9. And from there, it was really a case of they were just kind of waiting and hoping that a mistake would be made. And it was unlike Ben Stokes, I think, as an England captain, that he was sort of letting the game drift. And that's one of the first times we've ever seen that from him as a captain.
Yeah, that's right. And it's been the theme of this test match for England as well. It just felt like they didn't have the mental fortitude to try and stay in the battle, in the arm wrestle with Starc and Boland with the bat. And then the runs started flowing. Mitchell Starc, when he burst onto the scene and made his debut, he was scoring runs quite freely, but he did have a bit of a dip, I guess, over the last few years, particularly that 2019, maybe up to, the past 12 months, really, with the bat. But he certainly delivered. That 50 today, that half-century went on to make 77, was his first half-century in Australia in 9 years for Mitchell Starc, and he showed all that batting talent that we have seen right throughout his career.
Yeah, as you say, the talent has always been there. I think at times over the past few years, you've seen a lot of runs scored and partnerships built by Pat Cummins.
Yeah.
And so with Pat Cummins there, I think Mitchell Starc has been a little bit more of a chancer with the bat.
Yeah.
I suppose you'd say at times as a batsman he makes a lovely golfer with big swings. But, he knew, as did Scott Boland, that this was an opportunity, even if they were lower order players, to just bat for as long as possible. And the longer they batted, the worse the situation would be for England, both in terms of the scoreboard and the conditions that they would face when they came out to bat. And the way that they did it, they, created a couple of really, interesting records for Australia. I think that was the second highest total by Australia ever, with no one making 100.
I love that. That was my start of the day. I was actually going to say that next.
And it was only the third third occasion ever that all 11 members of an Australian batting lineup in a test match had got to double figures, and Brendan Doggett and Scott Boland had their own little partnership after Starc got out. So it was a real ensemble.
A good day for the statisticians, that's for sure. I was rattling off both of those numbers during my news crosses throughout the afternoon too. Australia's innings at an end on 511, that lead, well, about 170 odd. And in a blink of an eye, England actually made quite good inroads to start. Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett playing that aggressive front foot style that we have seen from them so much in the past. They were none for 45 through 5 overs, but once again, they just couldn't go with the Aussies.
Yeah, well, Mitchell Starc clearly looked a little bit sore and tired, having batted for a long time. And the other thing was, the new ball, it swung a little bit for Starc, but it wasn't doing too much, no more than you would expect as an opening batsman, whether it's a red ball in the day or a pink ball in the night. So yes, Crawley and Duckett got off to a good start. Australia obviously had a bit of a reset at the dinner break. They reconsidered things. They pulled their length back a bit, concentrated on trimming the bails, hitting the top of the stumps, and from there they had, I think, a little bit of good fortune where Scott Boland's bowled one that's probably hit a crack and skidded through low to Ben Duckett. He's one England batsman that I have quite a bit of sympathy for this series. He's got some terrific balls and some very good, difficult ones to keep out. He has genuinely been bowled out on most of the 4 occasions he's been dismissed so far. And then from there, it was really as I said before, the relentless grouping of deliveries in areas that ask questions, as you would traditionally do in a test match, as you would traditionally do in a Sheffield Shield match. And you look at Ollie Pope, he was batting okay, but he got a bit frantic, as he seems to always do. And Michael Neser took advantage with a couple of terrific return catches to get him and Zach Crawley. And obviously Michael Neser, the player who came in for Nathan Lyon, needed to make a contribution, and that was a big one. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Now let's start with Australia's bowlers before we try and pick up the pieces of England's batting tonight. But Scott Boland, second innings Scotty, doing it once again. What's his average now? Something like 11 in the second innings, 40 odd in the first innings. Once he got going, you could just feel the swell of support in the stadium as well. I actually found myself realising that I've actually spent most of the test, or all of the tests, behind the windows, and I actually wanted to go sit outside in that last session. And you could feel that immediate switch. And then once the crowd got involved, once the Aussies had their backs up, they were unbelievable, and Scott was the one who swung it.
Our colleague Tom Deason and I did the same thing after the dinner break. We went down to the boundary to watch live, or watch out from behind the window, and you could feel the steaminess in the atmosphere, the expectation, and the knowledge really that Scott Boland is going to keep asking those questions. He gets Ben Duckett, that changes the mood of things definitely, and from there you see England, interestingly enough, they're more or less trying to survive for the rest of the session, and their run rate for the session was, I think, just over 3 and over, which is probably as slowly as you've seen them score in the last 3 or 4 years of Test cricket. But it didn't do any good, because their game has been so built around positive play, run scoring, putting bowlers under pressure so that the ball is not in a dangerous area too often. If they then go into a mode where they're trying to survive, they just haven't really practiced that much. And so that meant the game was very much on Australia's terms, and the wickets just continue to flow.
It feels like a heavy-handed thing to say, but I don't know if they can survive. I don't know if they have the skill or the temperament to survive, and that was on show tonight, because once that pressure started to climb, they simply cracked. Obviously, after the dismissal of Zach Crawley, England were heavily relying on Joe Root, Harry Brook and Ben Stokes, who is still at the crease and he is still delivering in that role, to try and hang in there for them. But again, you could question the shot selection towards the end there. Joe Root was flashing at one quite well outside of the stumps as well. So it's now left their ashes hanging in the balance, because the reality is, and the numbers show, that you're not coming back from 2-0 down, especially in Australia.
I think there's a fair bit as well in terms of credit to give to Scott Boland for the way that he bowled. For Mitchell Starc, I think the way that he bowled to Joe Root was actually a very clever plan from Australia. They went around the wicket, was trying to hit the cracks that are around that area or outside the off stump, but he also bowled a number of deliveries back of the length, trying to get Joe Root back, and then bowled a quicker, fuller delivery, which Joe Root, he sees as a scoring opportunity, and rightly so, but he was late on it. And being late on it brought the outside edge. he hit the ground as well, which resulted in the review being required and a little bit of conjecture about the dismissal. But once Nico came through, there was no doubt about that. And to follow from there, Harry Brook was, he was outclassed really in a Test match situation by Scott Boland, and Jamie Smith similarly. He hasn't really fired a shot in this series. Alex Carey has definitively won the battle of the wicketkeepers so far, and that leaves Ben Stokes, who's really the best pure technician among the England batsmen when they're trying to survive. He knows where his off stump is. He's got a good defence, and he and Will Jacks just crept through to the close. One
on Mitchell Starc. In fact, every video, every recap that we've done, it feels like we're heaping all of the praise on Mitchell Starc, but that has been the story of this Ashes series so far. This is only the 5th day of the series, and Mitchell Starc, once again, after his heroics with the bat, he just seemed to get a second win when the crowd started swelling. He was sensational, and at times throughout the start of Australia's time in the field, the speeds looked a little bit down. I saw him grabbing at his side a couple of times. I don't know whether that's going to be cause for concern for the Aussies moving forward, but just like that, he came back to life, and England were scrambling just to try and get the stumps.
Yeah, that's right, and I think as I say, the combination of the psychological damage he's already done in the series in the previous innings, and the fact of the match situation that England had been placed under pressure by the other bowlers, and then it's like, oh, we need to deal with Mitchell Starc again. I think all of those things have a compound effect over the course of a Test series, and I know we've only had 5 days of Test cricket, but you can see those narratives, those forces of accumulation really working in Australia's favour. And Mitchell Starc did look pretty tired and sore towards the end of the day. He was sort of looking like I guess a bit of a grumpy old man in some ways, but it certainly wasn't hurting him when he was bowling. So the way that he was able to really go in for the kill after the earlier wickets had fallen, and to get Joe Root and then to get Jamie Smith, it's it leaves us thinking or feeling like is this Ashes contest close to being over?
I think I'm ready to declare that it is. It certainly feels that way. I had such high hopes as a fan, as a supporter of cricket coming into this summer. There was so much excitement around this English team. We were there in 2023 in the last Ashes series in the UK, and the entertainment that provided was unparalleled, but it just feels like they're simply incapable of delivering on a 2-0 series deficit, and I think I'm willing to declare that now. They're still trailing by 45 runs or so with 4 wickets in hand. 2 days still to play, although there is a little bit of rain on the horizon over the next couple of days as well. Only one team has come back from 2-0 down, and that was back in 1936-37. So the numbers are not looking good for England, and already, certainly among the UK press, the examinations have already started. The autopsies on this summer that has only just begun. We keep coming back to the fact this is day 5 of the Ashes, and there's going to be some pretty hard questions asked of Bazball.
Absolutely, and I think the questions are going to be around, we did come to Australia with something different to the previous couple of tours. We wanted to try something different, but the test of a Test cricket or a successful Test team in Australia does seem to be how relentless you can be.
Yep.
And the only team that has succeeded in doing that as a visiting team to Australia in recent times has been India.
Yep.
A few years before, South Africa were pretty good at it, and as we know, traditionally South Africa play a pretty similar brand of Test cricket to Australia. So it will put the spotlight very much on Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum in terms of their method, and in particular for someone like Brendan McCullum, there was always the view within Australia that, well, he was from New Zealand and they never really beat us, and he doesn't really have that record to suggest that he knows how to win in Australia. And those who said that before the series would be sitting pretty comfortably right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So England fighting for survival. The only people who perhaps were more disappointed, more pained as those English wickets fell than English supporters inside the stadium, which I do have to note, every time a heartbroken English fan came up on the big screen, the crowd just roared as well. Would be Cricket Australia, because they are now staring down having to refund tickets for day 4 if this doesn't go 15 overs tomorrow. For a while there, I was thinking the play could have been extended tonight, and that would be another financial disaster for Cricket Australia in what is supposed to be its big summer.
They have at least got through 3 full days, and they've got
Thankfully.
100,000 plus spectators at the Gabba, which is ranks with the total crowd for any Test match here, really. So they do have that in their favour.
It was all going to plan, wasn't it? It was all going to plan for a day 5 test match there for a while.
Yes, well, I think the fact of the matter is obviously that England's first innings has allowed this test match to be a longer test match, and Joe Root's terrific 100 in the first innings has allowed for a longer test match. But that doesn't mean that they've cracked it. It's an improved performance on Perth, but they haven't been able to sustain the quality of the batting or the bowling in the same way that Australia do to be the best test match team in the world. And that's, that is going to leave England with questions about how they prepared, what their approach should be when they play Australia, and what their approach should be away from home in conditions that don't suit Bazball as we know it.
Still so many questions to be answered. Am I maybe being a little bit too heavy by declaring that the test match is over? The test match is all but over, isn't it?
It's Ben Stokes or bust. I think he's the one card that England have left.
Yes.
The fact that he has conjured a couple of miracles for England in the past, but it's asking an awful lot. It's asking an awful lot, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we will get a day 4 of this second Ashes test match, and we will have an opportunity to see Ben Stokes claw and fight and try and drag England to what would be a miraculous escape. For all the in-depth analysis of everything that you have seen and heard about today, head to The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. Otherwise, we will see you back here tomorrow to break down what we are expecting to be the final day of this second Ashes test match.